everybody. Welcome to the meeting of the Los Angeles City Council. We have 4 members present. Thank you to Mr. Garcetti, Mr. Reyes, and Mr. Zine. We need 10 members for a quorum. morning, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Welcome to the meeting of the Los Angeles City Council for today, Tuesday, August 14th. The year is 2001. We can be viewed from home on Channel 35, LA City View on cable stations, or via webcast from the city's homepage, or heard via council phone. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bernson, Galanter, Garcetti, Hahn, Holden, Miskowski, Pacheco, Perry, Reyes, Ridley Thomas, Wax, Weiss, Zine, and Padilla. 10 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
First order of business.
Approval of the minutes.
Ms. Hahn moves. Ms. Miskowski seconds.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Mr. Zine moves. Mr. Reyes seconds.
Before starting the regular agenda, there's a request to continue item number 30 from Council District 1 until September 4th.
Members request to continue item number 30. Without objection, item 30 is continued.
Mr. President, next on the agenda are items numbers 3 through 7, which are appointments to Los Angeles Harbor Commission.
Okay. Public hearings have been held on these items. Let's, colleagues, take the same format and approach that we did last Friday with the airport commissioners and call forward all 5 of the harbor nominees. I can ask you to please come forward to the table, and maybe the sergeants can pull another chair or two to accommodate. Thank you. Colleagues, as I mentioned, public hearing has been held on the confirmation of the commissioner nominees before you. I'd like to first call on Ms. Hahn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I rise this morning to, first of all, to welcome the Harbor Commission nominees here at City Hall, and to thank you for being willing to serve in this capacity. And last night we had another unprecedented Commerce Committee meeting down in San Pedro, where close to 200 people from the community showed up to exchange ideas with the nominees, to express their concerns, their frustrations, and it was, I believe, an important first step in the balance that we believe we can achieve between having a first-class port and a first-class communities in San Pedro and Wilmington. So it was a very good meeting. I wanted to thank Councilwoman Galanter for also traveling all the way down to San Pedro to be a part of that meeting. And I believe these commissioners will, with great integrity and with great faith, will not make a decision on the Harbor Commission where they do not stop and ask first how it will impact the surrounding communities. So I rise in full support of these nominees and hope you will do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Galanter.
Thank you, Mr. President. As chair of the committee, I just wanted to move approval of the committee reports.
Confirmation has been moved and seconded. Any other members wishing to speak? Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I'm glad to see a fellow resident of the 13th District here. Welcome, Mr. Louis. I just have one question for the nominees before we move. I know a lot of people have been concerned about the environmental impact in the harbor of expansion, and I wonder if maybe each of you could speak briefly about some of the ideas you have for ensuring that our moves towards a cleaner harbor can be continued in the coming years.
Good morning, council persons. My name is Nicholas Tonsich, one of the nominees for Board of Harbor Commissioners. I've been fortunate enough since my nomination to speak with several of the community leaders, and they have indicated to me specifically what their concerns are. Most specifically, it's what they perceive as the industrialization of the port. One of the issues right now concerns a lawsuit for the proposed China shipping terminal. There's been some complaints regarding the thoroughness of the environmental impact reports. The port has prepared 2 environmental impact reports. The community, I think, perceives deficiencies in those reports. I think in order to make sure that we address the environmental concerns of the communities, we need to make sure that thorough discussions, public hearings are had on these environmental impact reports before they're finalized and prepared. Additionally, aesthetic concerns from the community exist, both in terms of the visual aspects of having large cranes. I believe those can be addressed through how the cranes are placed, certain aesthetic and architectural measures, as well as landscaping measures. Secondly, great concern has been raised regarding diesel emissions, and I think the port's begun exploring certain ways for alternative fuels, electric fleet within their vehicles, and I think we'll proceed along that course. Also, implementation of the rail line. We're fortunate to have the Alameda Corridor currently being constructed, and it's our belief that the use of the rail will help reduce the use of trucks and diesel emissions within that area. So we're going to proceed along those courses. Thank you.
Members of the Council, Elwood Louis, nominee for the Harbor Commission. I have had the opportunity to be involved in a number of cases involving environmental impact reports, and the sensitivity of those reports to the community is very important to me. And having been on both sides of the question, I believe that we must take the community's concerns in consideration in any decision. I was struck yesterday by the details of the complaints, and I took notes of each person's comments, and I could tell you that I am concerned that we be sensitive and do the right thing and balance the concerns about the port expansion, which is absolutely necessary to drive the economy of the Commission forward, as well as do it in a way that is sensitive to the environment and to the community members. And I would pledge to do my best to make sure that everything is considered and alternatives are considered before any decision that I would vote to was made. Thank you.
Councilpersons, I too am extremely concerned about the environmental issues related to the port. We have a very serious responsibility as commissioners to monitor the economic success of the port, but at the same time an equal responsibility to protect the quality of life of the people who not only work at the port, but who live in the surrounding communities. I have met with many community groups about this issue long before I was ever nominated to this commission, and have taken tours, and I've been meeting with them to actually see the situations. And yes, the toxic fumes, the environmental, the chemicals, the underwater issues, I know there is a big question, and I think there has been a suggestion made by our councilwoman that we look into establishing an environmental impact committee that will take a very knowledgeable look at any reports before they are just blanket accepted or not accepted by the commission. So we have a lot of things to do and a lot of work to do in that area. Thank you for asking.
Council members, my name is Tom Warren. I am a member of the International Longshore and Warehouse Union. I've worked on the docks for the past 34 years. And I'm very concerned about the environmental impact because it greatly affects approximately 8,000 workers in the port area that I have represented in the past. And I can see the air changing color and the particulate matter being dropped on top of us. And we definitely want to see it cleaned up. The port has already moved in with some of the stevedoring companies to make changes in their equipment and go to cleaner burning fuels, to propane and things like that, going to some electric. And I see that in the future as being maybe a mandatory thing for any new terminals opening down the line. I would love to see the air quality improved and the truck traffic relieved. And I agree with Mr. Tonsich that when the Alameda Corridor kicks in April, that will eliminate a lot of the local truck traffic off the roads, and it should basically help start clean up the air. Thank you.
Councilman Garcetti, honorable members, I can say one thing, as you've heard from my colleagues here, what you have is a collective of people that really know the issues. Unlike what's happened in past commissions where you've had folks that aren't acquainted with the community, they don't know the issues firsthand. The other thing I said last night in talking to these 150 people and listening to their concerns was also for the first time this community has a mayor and a council person, happen to be related politically, I won't say otherwise, who really care about this issue and know the issues better than most. I think what you're going to see from Harbor is a collective effort from this commission and the community and electeds and City Hall in making a difference. So I think whatever comes out, this is going to be a world-class port with a world-class perspective, with a waterfront situation that makes sense and rivals Long Beach. In fact, overtakes Long Beach. So I need you to know that. Thank you very much for asking.
Mr. Reyes.
Council President, colleagues, in studying the city and looking at its demographics, the census tracts around the harbor, there's a propensity of pretty high levels of poverty that qualify for block grant funds, qualify for programs. And the harbor is an economic engine, for the region. Are there any thoughts, any kinds of strategies that you have in mind by which we can start sharing the wealth, if you will, knowing that you have such volumes of trade and jobs? How do we start connecting with the local communities in that area, given their conditions of poverty? Any thoughts?
Thank you, Councilman Reyes. The thoughts go along the lines of how much can we give back to the local communities. It involves an interpretation, I believe, of the Tidelands Trust, and we're beginning to familiarize ourselves with that, looking forward to a possible amendment of that to add recreational purposes, which I think will enhance the ability to contribute funds from the port to Wilmington and San Pedro. The port has attempted now to identify properties that can be used for community purposes within the area of Wilmington. Wilmington has opened up Banning's Landing, and that's a good start. It's a nice facility, provides access to the water or a view from the water, and the port is going to be identifying properties that are conducive for that type of use within Wilmington. San Pedro is fortunate to have the ports of call and the cruise terminal and provides great access to those areas. Additionally, to improving the quality of life in Wilmington, one issue that's been raised by the community members last evening, and one that I'm familiar with from living in that area, is that there are great areas of container storage. And I think myself and the rest of the commission members are cognizant of that fact, and we'll be looking for ways in which we can reduce areas in which lots and residential communities are just utilized for container storage, stacked, sometimes 40 feet into the air, reducing air quality and creating an impact and impression of urban blight. If we can get these containers that are stored, most of them empty, out of residential areas, so that the quality of life, the area is aesthetically pleasing, it develops more pride in the neighborhoods, and I think we'll see a general improvement in the quality of life as well.
Specifically to your question, last night we had a speaker to discuss the outreach program that the Harbor Commission was requested to consider regarding the use of small businesses in the community. And I think it's important that we examine that process and see how feasible that is, and I think it could be feasible, balancing the financial risk to the city versus the need to get community involvement. But I'm sure there's a lot of things we could do, and to look at that program from the ground up to develop a system and a procedure and a methodology which people can utilize to enhance the business opportunities that are available for community residents in that area. Thank you.
Another area that is often overlooked, and yet it is the critical area to help the disadvantaged, and that's education. And we feel very strongly that the port needs to play a very proactive role in education in the community. And one of the projects that we will be having on the table is the establishment of the Port of Los Angeles Charter Public High School that will have areas of specialization in international trade, business, transportation, commerce, and world languages. It should be a flagship that exists nowhere else in the United States if this happens. But it's looking at the needs of our young people today, so many who are dropping out of school and not finishing because they're not necessarily college bound, but are interested in working the docks, are interested in many of the occupations that are entry level that relate to the harbor area. So we want to take advantage of that and try to do something innovative in the area of education.
Councilman Reyes, the harbor has provided a lot of good jobs for several years. The harbor has also lost two main industries over the past 20 or 30 years, which was the commercial fishing and also shipyards. The waterfront is the one remaining industry that is a large economic engine to Los Angeles and to California and to the nation. Out of every 7 jobs is related to world trade that's here in Southern California. And we see the harbor, the expansion of the harbor is critical to the economics of the city of Los Angeles, and also the environmental issues have to work hand in hand, and I think they can work hand in hand, and I think this commission's is going to be able to do that. It's going to be a task that we're challenged to take, but we're ready to do it. And I see that can be a win-win situation for both groups.
Councilman Reyes, I think one thing that I saw when I went to the harbor, I'm sure those people that have been there seen the same, there's a lot of resources there. And you're absolutely right, there are pockets of poverty that don't benefit from, frankly, those resources. I think that, and I didn't hear my colleagues say it, but I know they believe this because I've talked to them privately. You can match some of those resources with some CDD dollars or some CRA dollars or other dollars. I think we can make a change there. This councilwoman has in fact offered some of those solutions, as well as this mayor. So you're going to see some of that. I think that there's people doing extremely well at that harbor. They want to be here. They want to be in this city. And I think that putting some resources to help the community where they're taking from a little bit, like the truck traffic, I think they'd be apt to do that. So I'm going to be a commissioner that works on that.
Mr. Zine.
Thank you, Mr. President. Question other than James Acevedo. I know your previous experience as a fire commissioner and the commendable job you did in that position. The other nominees, have you had any previous experience as commissioners with the City of Los Angeles in any departments?
Yes. I recently served as a commissioner on the Commission on Children, Youth, and Their Families, very interested in the issues related to youth and their families in the City of Los Angeles. And I think that we have a great opportunity as commissioners working within the system to affect change where it's needed. And I think the role of the commissions is only going to be as effective as the amount of effort and dedication and knowledge base that the commissioners themselves bring to the job.
Other nominees?
Yes, I have served on 2 city committees. One was the original committee to look at the revisions of the charter, and secondly, a few years ago, I served on the select committee to determine the finalists for the chief of police. Other than that, I have not served on city commissions, but I have served on many county and state commissions.
Councilman Zine, although I've not served on any direct city commissions, I've served on other state bar commissions, other committees, committees within our area of the harbor area in terms of local communities for educational and recreational purposes. I've also worked with the Harbor Commission in my capacity as an attorney with the principal office in San Pedro, and I'm familiar with the way in which the Harbor Commission functions procedurally in the past, and I think my experience will assist in that way.
Councilman Zion, I have not served on any other commissions. I am a Coro graduate from 1992 for the Wilmington Neighborhood Program, and also I've held several offices with the International Longshore and Warehouse Union, and I feel I'm uniquely qualified to sit on the Harbor Commission due to the fact that I am a person who's worked in this harbor over the last 34 years and understands the issues.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Holden. Mr. Holden.
You all sound good, but so did the other appointees to the commission. Turned out over the years, they just never got along with the people who live there. Incompatibility in terms of what you are required to do and their living environment. So in time, I guess we're going to find out how much of this is talk. Now, for those of you who live in the San Pedro area, raise your hand. All right. Now, you've been around for a little while and been able to decide what commission did a good job for you or didn't as you lived in that area. How do you rate, hold on, let me answer the question. How do you rate the other commissions performing their duties as harbor commissioners and you as the residents in the area? Just the three of you.
Thank you, Councilman Holden. I think the results of the previous commissions were based on the mandate of the mayor from whom they were nominated. I think we're fortunate, being residents of San Pedro, that we have one of San Pedro's finest residents in Mayor Hahn. Mayor Hahn has already, through his actions and correspondence and communications, indicated to us the direction in which he wants this commission to serve. I think we're certainly capable of taking that lead. We're additionally fortunate because we have a resident of San Pedro and Councilwoman Hahn. Councilwoman Hahn as well has expressed her desires and needs to the community. So I think a commission's function is generally a mandate from the mayor and the council person from that area. And we're fortunate that both the mayor and Councilwoman Hahn have made their intentions well known, and I think we can follow that mandate and will follow that mandate.
What's the intention? What are you talking about?
The intentions are to improve the balance between the community and the port. I think in the past we've seen a mandate in which the primary importance has been placed on improving the port, maintaining and ensuring that its capacity is number one, without regard to community relations. I think now our mandate has been to ensure that that takes place, as well as maintaining a balance and ensuring that the community is revitalized and their views are taken into account.
All right, next.
Councilman.
Raise the mic so it can hear you.
Yes, thank you.
Get a little older hearing, you know.
Thank you for asking. As a community resident and a very active community member for the past 20 years, I know firsthand from working on a day-to-day basis and living in the community that the community has not felt heard. And one of our primary goals is to be sure that our community members feel heard. First of all, we must listen and then get down to the tasks of taking care of and really truly addressing the issues. Community relations has not been a priority. I entirely concur with my commissioner friend here.
Right.
Councilman Holden, I feel that this group of commissioners, as not in the past, will not react to things, but will act after hearing all the facts and study the issues prior to making a decision. We won't be a rubber stamp committee. We'll listen to the needs of the community and to the needs of the harbor, and we'll make the right decisions, which is good for both groups.
All right, Mr. President, members, you will be challenged by the community as commissioners, no matter what you say here today. You, Mr. Warren, the union, want to bring in more jobs. In order to need more jobs, you're going to have more cargo coming in. Alameda Corridor is going to take some of the traffic off the street, which has been a major complaint for the area. The trucks going down residential neighborhoods. No sidewalks in many cases. Quality of life not what it should be as compared to other parts of the city, and that's why they've talked about seceding from the city. And you, sir, you're saying you have a mayor now and you have a council person that you can relate to. My question to you still want to leave the city of Los Angeles? You can answer that yes or no real quick, like on my time.
Councilman Holden, I've never been in favor of secession.
Oh, write that down. And I must tell you that for the other two outside members, they've expressed their commitment and concern regarding what the need is in the area. I'm going to support you, but I must tell you, I think you'll be doing the same as the others, expanding the port, bringing in more cargo. Yes, they will. Whether you like them or not, the fact of the matter is that we put $1 billion in the Alameda Corridor, and we didn't put that $1 billion in the Alameda Corridor with the expectation that the trains would not roll. Do you understand what I mean? The real world says that we bring in more cargo, we have more people, we need more commerce in the area and beyond, because it comes from here, maybe go to San Francisco, up the coast, the ships don't do it. That's the facts of life. And you have to balance one against the other. The fact of the matter is that you're not going to shut down the LAX. You're not going to shut down the harbor. You're not going to shut down DWP no matter which commission you're serving on. And that's a fact. So you have to balance it. And if you can do things to mitigate the kind of negative impact that bringing in more people, more jobs, more commerce will have with the community, then that's fine. That's admirable. And for that, I will support you. We'll see how eager you are. Come back next year. See how many of you are still there.
Thank you, Mr. Holden. Any other members wishing to speak? Seeing none, clerk, please open the roll on the confirmation of all 5 commissioners. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Congratulations, you are all approved. Let's end that forthwith. Next item, please.
Mr. President, item number 16, a request from Councilmember Galanter to continue that matter until September 19th.
Colleagues, request to continue item number 16 without objection. Next item, please.
Items number 8 and 9 are commission appointments to the Board of Water and Power Commission.
Okay, once again, colleagues, we have commissioners before us for confirmation. If I can ask them both to come forward. These are nominees to the Department of Water and Power Board of Commissioners. Public hearing has been held on this item. Any members wishing to speak or ask questions of the commissioners? Mr. Holden.
Same basic question, you know, why you feel that you can do a good job for us. It's an energy crisis in the state of California right now. How can you give us the assurance that you're not going to sell off our energy producing plants? How are you going to stabilize the price or cap the price of energy for our ratepayers in the city of Los Angeles? What gives you the qualification experience to do that? Insight, additional information that we don't have. I just want you to talk to us, tell us, and then I'll speak, Mr. President.
Mr. President and members of the council and Mr. Holden, thank you for asking the question. I have long been involved in community service. I have worked in government. I've worked in regulated agencies. I currently run a business that also has clients that are regulated. And I feel that although I am not an expert, a technical expert, I have a clear sense of what we need, and that's basically clean water and power at reasonable rates. And I would like to make sure that the Board of DWP Commissioners works well with each of the council members as well as the deputies, and in turn work well with your constituents so that we all work together to ensure that for years to come.
Council President, council members, I'm Mary Leslie. Councilman Holden, I've had the pleasure in the past of working with you. It's always been a pleasure to work with the Los Angeles City Council and the mayor. I welcome this opportunity based on my experience in both the state government, the federal government, and the city government. I'm not an expert either in these issues, but I feel that I can add value in terms of my knowledge of state, federal, and local government. And I believe that the mayor is going to be clear, as well as the council, about their intent to continue to give the people of Los Angeles water and power at a reasonable price. I don't fear that we will sell our energy at anything but a reasonable price. Thank you.
Have you heard of the Mojave Desert plant yet? Have you heard about it? Yes or no?
Yes, this morning.
Right. Oh, this morning. Anybody ask you why we were selling it and whether or not you were doing anything to kind of cancel the deal? Yes or no?
No.
How do you know that if it's sold that we won't have access to the power energy anymore from that plant? Are you aware of that? Yes or no?
No.
Okay, well, you got to do your homework. I mean, otherwise you can be brainwashed by the staff. There were some staff members, there was a guy named Freeman. You ever hear of him? First name David? Yes or no?
Yes, I have.
Okay, well, he was advocating selling the Mojave Desert plant. And he brainwashed the majority of members of the council except the two of us. And now we know that was a mistake on the part of the council. Big mistake, because the energy crisis has hit us. We could use that energy to sell to other customers. Now we may not have access to it. We're holding on. We have not closed the deal yet. Okay, you ever hear of the ISO? Yes or no?
Yes.
What is it?
Independent service operator?
Systems operator, all right. You?
Yes.
Okay, fine. And they're the ones who set the energy prices and our power lines, transmission lines and so on. If we had sold out to them and given them the authority to take control of us, as there were members of the council and the staff and the mayor at one point who was advocating turning DWP over to Edison or the highest bidder, where do you think we would have been? And what I'm saying to you, I want you to go in to be independent, be tough, and if you come up with some crazy idea, we're talking about let's deregulate like they tried before Freeman got here, he tried to take credit for us not deregulating, of course, but he was not even here. Isn't that right, Ruth? Oh, well, you can say yes or no. You know, she was part of that deal also. She doesn't want to indict herself. But I can tell you right now that it's a crazy deal over there. Energy is priceless, and they want to take control of it to sap the ratepayers. They'll never stop trying to keep ratepayers poor, and the poor are poor. That's what the power brokers do. Now, it's going to be your job to protect us all. And so when I see some of these recommendations coming through that are probably not of your doing, I'm going to call you in and ask you about it. How did it happen? You understand what I'm saying? My time's up, and so now I'm going to sit down and vote. Watch the board.
Thank you, Mr. Holden. Ms. Galanter.
Thank you, Mr. President. As chair of the committee, I would once again like to move the confirmation of the nominees before us, as I did with the other nominees who were just there. I think that what you've learned from this morning is that Mr. Holden disagrees with the majority vote of the previous Board of Water and Power Commissioners and of the City Council. And I'm sure you're aware that in the event that the new Board of Water and Power Commissioners does something that the City Council has a problem with, the City Council has a way to assert jurisdiction and deal with it accordingly. So without re-arguing the Mojave sale, which will take us all morning, and we've already done it, you know, we just don't really need to do that again. I would like to move confirmation, and I hope that now that you have a taste of what you're in for, you're still willing to serve.
Thank you, Ms. Galanter. Any other members wishing to speak? Mr. Holden, for a second time.
I want to add that this City Council, I believe and hope, is not as easily persuaded as the other City Council was when they sold the Mojave Desert plan. It's a dumb thing to do then, and we can get it back and be smart on their part. There's nothing wrong with recognizing that you made a mistake when you made a mistake. I think these guys learned from reading the newspapers that this is something we're not going to do again. Go ahead.
Mr. Burnson. You were the final speaker. Previous question has been moved. We have both commission confirmations before us. Colleagues, clerk, please open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Congratulations. You are now confirmed.
Thank you.
Good luck. Forthwith on that. Next item, please.
Items numbers 1 and 2 on the regular agenda, items noticed for public hearing.
Items 1 and 2 are before us, colleagues. Items noticed for public hearing. I have no request from members of the public to speak on these items. We shall deem the public hearing open and closed. Any members wishing to speak on items 1 or 2? Seeing none, clerk, please open the roll on items 1 and 2. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Items 1 and 2 are approved. Next item.
Items numbers 10 through 20, with the exception of 16, are items for which public hearings have been held.
Items 10 through 20 before us now, colleagues. Any specials? Ms. Galanter calls item number 12 special. Let's call item number 10 special as well. Any other specials? Seeing none, clerk, please open the roll on items. Mr. Reyes.
So please.
17 special by Mr. Reyes. Any other specials? We're not there yet. Any other specials? Number 14, call special by Mr. Burnson. Any other specials? Number 19, call special by Mr. Garcetti. Mr. Clerk, what remains before us?
Item number 11, 13, 15, 18, and 20.
Clerk, please open the roll on those items. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Those items are approved. Next items, please.
Items number 21 through 33 are items for which public hearings have not been held.
Items 21 through 33 are before us. We have cards on items 31 and 32. Let's call those special. Item number 22, called special by Ms. Galanter. Any other specials? Any other specials? Seeing none, clerk, please open the roll on the balance of the items. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Those items are approved. Next item, please.
It's been a request to have forthwith on 21.
On 21, forthwith on that.
That brings you to item number 34, which is a closed session item. Do you wish to hold that on the desk?
Let's hold that on the desk.
So item number 10, called special by Councilmember Padilla.
Let's hold that on the desk as well. Let's go to item number 12.
Item 12, Councilmember Galanter.
Thank you. The reason I've called this special is the committee acted on it this morning. I wanted to clarify a couple of things. We were asked by the mayor's office to disapprove the proposed 5-year contract, and what the department will do is instead use a 1-year contract in order to maintain shuttle services at Ontario Airport while the mayor's office takes the opportunity to review everything that's going on in Ontario. The reason I bring that up is that in the committee meeting, we had recorded the report as at the request of the Board of Airport Commissioners, but the board hasn't met yet. It's really at the request of the mayor's office. The board will be meeting, I believe, next week, sometime soon, August 28th, thank you, to consider the whole issue. And in the meantime, we'll move forward with well, actually, let me make sure I understand this. Ms. Weingart, I might need your help on this. The item that came before the committee this morning was the 5-year contract, which the mayor's office has asked us to disapprove, and the council would then have to disapprove it. Can we approve a 1-year contract, or that has to go through the board?
That has to go back
Okay.
to the board. This is to disapprove this, and then the board will meet
On the 28th, and then
on the
that
28th,
contract will come
that
forward.
contract will come forward.
All right. Now, just so everybody knows, the existing contract expires on the 31st. The board will act on the 28th. The council will be in recess on the 28th.
Yes, until the 4th.
So technically, we will not be able to adopt on a 1-year. It doesn't require because it's under 3 years. Got it. Okay. So that'll be in place. Thank you. All right. With that, I move that the council disapprove item number 12 at the request of the mayor's office.
Thank you. Any other members wishing to speak? Seeing none, clerk, please open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
That item is approved.
Actually, the item is disapproved.
Disapproved.
It's approved. The item is disapproved.
What
Just so
she
we're all
said.
clear, right?
Correct. The recommendation is adopted, I should say. Next item, please.
Item number 14, called special by Councilmember Burns.
Item number 14, Mr. Burnson.
I believe this is the item on the substitution of Oxnard for Chandler. I think this is moot because the MTA has already approved the Chandler route. So I would move receive and file on this.
Which I do believe is the recommendation before us. Any other members wishing to speak? Seeing none, clerk, please open the roll to receive and file this item. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Item 14 is received and filed. Next item, please.
Item number 17, called special by Councilmember Reyes.
Item number 17 is before us. Mr. Reyes.
It's basically, Council President, council members, it's a friendly amendment. Just wanted to suggest that the DOT consult with the council office before the schools are chosen for these programs.
Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is something I know many of us probably when we were campaigning recently heard a lot about, school safety. I think there's quite a lot that still needs to be done, and the lack of communication that's gone on between the school district and the city council is really something of the utmost concern to many of us. I think the council member Hahn, her very able chairing of the Education and Neighborhoods Committee, will really want to look at this even further. I know that in the 13th district we've had a number of accidents with children getting hit, usually by other parents who are dropping their kids off at elementary schools. There was a recent case in Hollywood near Selma Avenue Elementary School, and I think it's something that time and time comes again. This is really, in a city that talks a lot about getting people out of cars, we have to do something to help pedestrians, even if those are the smallest citizens that we have, make sure that they get to school safe. I would really recommend that the committee take this up further, so just wanted to point that out. Thanks.
Mr. Pacheco.
Mr. President, colleagues, the question I have is, as we install or decide to move forward in installing speed bumps, is there any speed humps? They're not bumps? All right. Is there any sort of partnership with the school to require that the school have a crossing guard, either volunteer or paid? Is there any sort of education of the parents in terms of the way they deliver their children in the morning and some who speed off to work? Is there any sort of partnership with the schools when we select these schools, or are we just going to install speed humps? Because my concern is we may set up the physical humps, speed humps, but the attitudes and the sort of carelessness continues, and we have not really moved forward in terms of safety. So is this program going to include some sort of requirement that the schools have PTA meetings with some education for the parents? I mean, what are we going to do to complement the speed humps? Because I think just installing speed humps may not be sufficient for pedestrian safety and the safety of the children. And Mr. President, can you hold my time?
I'll hold your time.
Council members, I'm Pauline Chan from the Department of Transportation. Referring to Councilmember Pacheco's question, DOT has a long-standing relationship with the School Traffic Safety Education of LAUSD. We are constantly trying to think up of new programs that utilize coordination between the city government and the parents and the students. There are many programs online, but with respect to your specific question about perhaps an escort system where volunteers at the school can help bring the kids from the curbside where they're being dropped off to the school site. This program is being tried out in the southern part of the city, namely in the San Pedro area, and it's being overseen at the moment by the school officials and the Los Angeles Police Department. It is being done on a volunteer basis.
Okay. Mr. President, colleagues, in that case, I believe I would support Mr. Garcetti's, I think, was requesting that it go back to committee for further evaluation to the Education and Neighborhoods Committee. So I would support that motion at this point so I can clarify in committee what exactly my desires are in terms of having this partnership with the parents and the schools as a requirement before we would install any speed humps. So I would move that, or I would second the motion to send it back to committee.
Thank you, Mr. Pacheco. Mr. Burnson.
Yeah, first of all, I think you're trying to make more of this than really is there. We can't force the school district to do anything. In fact, we have communicated with the school districts in the past and gotten no response. Okay? The safety of the kids on the streets is our responsibility, the cities. This is intended basically to do an evaluation and to again send a letter to the individual schools rather than to go through the bureaucrats and try to see what their interest is and where their needs are, and to install these speed humps in areas where there is a danger situation. The danger the danger isn't where the crossing guards are, believe it or not. The danger is in the approach streets that the kids have to cross in getting to school. And so I don't have any problem with all these other measures, but they should be done separately. I think this basically tells us to do a survey with the schools, to contact the schools individually, for us to make a determination of where speed bumps would be appropriate in conjunction with them, and also to do a survey and talk to the crossing guards that deal with kids' safety currently, and get their input on the necessity for these speed humps. So what I would suggest, Eric and Nick, I would suggest that you make a separate motion. Yeah, I think that what is appropriate is a separate motion to go to the Education and Schools and Education Committee, and to ask them to try to coordinate some safety measures with the school district. But I would urge that we move forward with this because I think it's an important safety measure.
Mr. Garcetti?
Just a point of clarification. I actually didn't move that this be sent back to committee. I moved that it be also taken up further, so I didn't change this right now going forward.
Ms. Hahn?
Thank you, and that's what I was going to say. I was actually chair of this committee when we were discussing this item, and one of the things I do believe we're trying to make a statement on is that, with the creation of the new Education Committee, we want to figure out ways where the City of Los Angeles can partner with the school district on a number of issues, and I certainly think safety in and around the schools, on the streets, parents dropping off, is one of the things we can explore, and I think my new committee will begin to explore these kinds of things. What I would like to see, and it was my suggestion that we interview the crossing guards at local schools to see what because they're the first line defense on seeing the cars speeding by, and as Councilman Burnson said, some of those are not the parents. They're not the ones that are dropping the kids off. Those are just people traveling at high speeds on those streets that are close to schools. But I would like to have some input possibly into that questionnaire, and maybe we can all come up with some other questions that we would like to see these schools answer. And one of them might be, what currently do you do to kind of connect the parents and the crossing guards and the teachers? I know we also in that committee approved a contract with KidSafe, which is a company that comes in and does the little safety assemblies on the school grounds. But I think there's more that we can do, and I think that's what Councilman Garcetti was saying. And I would urge approval of this, but I would like to maybe all the council members would like to include some questions that we would like to get answered by the schools and the crossing guards.
Ms. Galanter.
I just want to tell the new council members that this is an issue that don't hold your breath waiting for the solution to be instantly implemented all over the city. Sometime before I got on the council, Zev Yaroslavsky put through a motion that required stop signs next to schools. And they were still adding them. They may still be adding them today, but they were certainly still adding them some years after I arrived at this council. And we are carrying that out. But it turns out that it costs a fair amount of money per stop sign. And there's an awful lot of schools and an awful lot of intersections close to schools. And so there's a lot of stop signs that have to be installed. With the speed hump program, that too has a budget attached to it. And the first year, each of us was given 2 streets. I think maybe it was 1 street. No, it was 2 streets in your district where you could get the city had enough budget for 2 sets of speed humps in each district. And of course, everybody wants them. If you haven't heard yet, you soon will from most of your district asking for speed humps. But it comes in budgetary chunks year after year. So these things are not going to get instantly implemented all over the city. And I also want to point out to you that what's on our agenda today doesn't have a budget associated with it. So this is really the beginnings of exploring it, but it's not the beginning of a speed hump program. We're a long way from an actual speed hump program. And let me just put in a plug for Walgrove Avenue while we're at it, because Walgrove Avenue is not that long a street. It runs from the Santa Monica City line down to Washington Boulevard, and it passes 3 schools in the process, and it passes within a block of another school. We have Walgrove Elementary, Mark Twain Junior High, and Venice High School, and then right behind Mark Twain Junior High, we have the Beethoven Elementary School. So, and we have stop signs everywhere, but it does not, in fact, prevent people taking the stretch between stop signs at a pretty good clip. And I know the neighbors would appreciate it as well as the students and their parents and the teachers.
Thank you. Mr. Reyes.
Colleagues, the discussion we're having, I think, reemphasizes my amendment, a friendly amendment, that those of us who have some rapport, some dialogue with schools that are in our district, perhaps there are some relationships we have with principals, PTAs that can augment, if not enhance, the level of development we have in terms of developing these safe corridors. Myself, I was a victim of a hit and run as a first grader, so I understand completely the urgency of this program, and I lay it out to you because it's something that we really need to focus on. I know within the center of the city we have all these main thoroughfares coming and going, a bunch of grammar schools, and kids are literally dodging these major boulevards just to get home and back to school. It's something that I heard over and over again in the campaign. So I just want to emphasize that we can have that coordination. We know what we're doing with our schools in our district, perhaps highlight and prioritize which schools we can work with, which ones we have more advances with. So we can have that discretion and coordination with DOT. I think it would take us a long way.
Mr. Zine.
Mr. President, colleagues, having served as a motorcycle supervisor for many years and working school programs, we developed in the San Fernando Valley a program called SET, Special Enforcement Team, where we used radar in those areas. And what we found is that the stop sign program, people don't stop at the stop signs. We found that the Safe Route to School program that was developed by the LA Unified School District, there was some compliance and a lot of non-compliance. If I look at this program, realistically, is it going to be extended to high schools, or is it just elementary and middle schools?
The speed hump program would address all the schools, but perhaps you get the most number of students walking under middle school and elementary school settings.
Okay, now a problem, reality, we've got road rage, congestion, chaos on the highways. If we were to put speed bumps, for example, on some of our major corridors versus the secondary roadways, and I don't know if the program includes just the major or the secondary corridors, but throughout the city, we have the schools that front both secondary and primary highways. Has that been addressed?
Throughout the nation, speed humps have been placed on local residential streets and not on major and secondary highways for the reasons that they are a disruption to heavy vehicles such as fire trucks and large trailers, and also not conducive to streets where we have high traffic volumes.
Okay. And then the other question, it doesn't show any contact with the LA Unified School District Police. They do have a police agency. They need to be included in this because it doesn't show anywhere that they've been consulted, and they are primarily responsible for safety at our campuses. So I would suggest that that be included. And I think it's a worthy program, just the kinks have to be worked out. But the stop sign program that was installed a number of years ago was supposed to come to bring reality and bring safety around the schools, and we found that simply lack of compliance, even though the stop signs are there. But I think it's a worthy program, but there's some kinks that still have to be worked out.
Ms. Misikowski.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm really hopeful with this conversation today and glad, first of all, that we're going to adopt the report today and then send it back for a status report and further implementation. Members of the council, what you're going to find is that each of us work, and different schools will come to our attention, and where you've got a good principal, a good PTA, a good effort with the council, you can come up with some ideas. What's really good about this is where we have had speed humps, we've worked with our residential community, and if the majority of them support it, you get the majority petition, you get speed humps in. But we've never gone to the schools, which have a large chunk of property in our districts, and get their petitions. So I think offering this is just one more tool of many that we've tried in the past and that we continue to need to try. One of the other things that we're going to find out is that it's not only speeding, it's the delivery of children in cars where sometimes the parents will double park and create problems. It's the issue of teachers and where the teachers park and where the buses line up. So all of these issues are part of making our school routes safe, our school areas safe, because you've got an awful lot of car and vehicular activity that is occurring right around the area that you're having little kids walk. And so all of these are great. I personally think, as Councilmember Zine has talked about, stop signs are good, but they don't really do the trick. What does slow down traffic are speed humps. And as a consequence, there are a lot of folks who don't like speed humps because they do work. So I can't think of a better place for them than around our schools after they are worked and coordinated with the schools, with the council offices. And Mr. Pacheco is right as well. It's got to be coupled with a really good education program where the kids in the school will take flyers home, parents understand what's going on, and it's just got to be an all-way communication, an all-way participation. But I like the idea that we're breaking through that barrier and now looking at our school streets on which schools front to now look for the possibility of candidacy for speed humps. I think it's a great program, and I really look forward to getting other ideas and other reports back after we've initiated.
Mr. Holden.
Mr. President, would you hold my time? I rise for a point of personal privilege, and I will address the issue. My point of personal privilege is that we have with us today is an announcement from the Baldwin Hills Recreation Center, a summer camp students for the summer camp program. This is Career Week. They're observing government firsthand here at City Hall. The ages are from 8 to 13. There's about 60 kids here today. And Laverne Kimball is the recreational coordinator. Also, Soledad Solis is the camp counselor. And Denise Koto is a camp counselor. And I just want you to rise and be acknowledged because we're talking about kids in schools right now. And safety programs. So, you know, in order to run for office, you need 500 qualified signatures. You need a few dollars, $300 or so, and you can become candidates and be elected. You have enough of you out there. Anyway, Mr. President, members, on this particular issue, we have a speed hump program here in the city of Los Angeles. The program provides nines, I know it, for 3 streets per council district per year. Is that correct? Yes or no? It's not
Roughly
correct?
3 to 4. It
Oh, 3 to
permits
4, then
them
give me 4. I've been told me I get 3.
It's done on a petition basis.
I know how it's done, but I can petition for 4? We'll do that. 4 major blocks in my street, and there's a tremendous demand for participation in this program. What was included in the motion was not finances to provide for the additional speed humps surrounding the school area, if the school district were to go along with the idea. There's no money, right?
There's a shortage of funds at the moment.
That's right. So what are we talking about? You're not talking about implementing a program. You're talking about a study. And even if the school district participates, the school district would have to get the petition to comply with the program the same as we do in our regular neighborhoods. So I understand they have to get the signatures, and which means that this is likely to happen, unlikely to happen any time period soon. Seems like to me there's a lot of work to be done. Number one, generate a better understanding between the school district and city, DOT. Number two, and to find the finances. Now I must tell you this: we have traffic crossing guards. The members of the council are requested from time to time to provide an additional traffic guard, crossing guard at or near school. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that's more preferable than speed humps. When the speed of the traffic, the volume of traffic, and accidents occur in that specific area near around the school, that's when the request is made, and most times it's granted. So if you're going to have both, fine. If you have the money for both, we pay for that crossing guard, not the school district. Initially, they were volunteers. They got no pay. Now they become city employees. They're unionized, and they get all the benefits. I mean, things are just getting out of control. But nevertheless, we're concerned about the safety of the students, and we put safety of students before dollars. And I would say let's start studying the program right now so we be ahead of the game.
Mr. Ridley Thomas. Previous question has been moved. We do have 2 additional members wishing to speak. Clerk, please open the roll on the previous question. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Okay, that ends discussion on this matter. Clerk, for everybody's clarification, what is before us?
There is the underlying report. There are 2 motions. Mr. Garcetti had moved to take this matter up further in the Education and Neighborhood Committee to see what more can be done.
He said to take it up, but not to hold this up. In other words,
That's
take up
correct.
Correct.
Yeah. So,
The issue.
So in other words, we can act on this, and they will take up the safety issue separately, and I believe if you'll check with him, that was what his intent was.
You're correct, Mr. Bernstein. And the second motion that is currently on the desk is Mr. Reyes, who asked that in the process, consult and coordinate with the appropriate council office.
And I believe there was a third offered by Mr. Zine to incorporate naming Los Angeles School District Police.
I don't know that it was actually moved. I think it was a suggestion to the department. Need clarification from Mr. Zine.
We'll take that as a suggestion then. Then the single amendment on the desk has been accepted as a friendly amendment. Clerk, please open the roll on the entire matter. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Item 17 is approved. Next item, please.
Item number 19, called special by Councilmember Galanter.
Item number 19, I believe it was Mr. Garcetti who called item 19 special.
Excuse me, it was.
His questions have now been answered. Mr. Garcetti?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a quick postscript, since this also is kind of relevant to what we were talking about, is that one of the ideas we could do is at the state legislature, we could look at something to double traffic fines in school zones, which would act as a deterrent, would also take care of some of the funding issues for both speed bumps, for the educational things such as kid steps here, and some of the other important measures. So I think that's something that we can look at in this council. And I appreciate Councilmember Reyes' candor in sharing with us his childhood trauma of hit and run in the first grade.
Any other members wishing to speak? Seeing none, clerk, please open the roll on item number 19. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Item 19 is approved. Next item, please.
Item number 31, called special, inasmuch as a member of the public wishes to speak.
Item 31 is before us, colleagues. We shall open the public hearing. The council calls forward Mr. Larry Green.
I just want to say, item 31, you're doing 31B now, is outside returning phone calls, unfortunately. I support this. This is waiving fees for an event which is a matter, well, Lou Gehrig's disease, basically, is what it is. And it's a very important event, and I think that some diseases get all the headlines, so to speak, and all the funding. And I don't want to mention what they are, but this is not one of those diseases. And I applaud the City Council for waiving the fees for this event. So I just wanted to speak support of that, and that's it.
Thank you. That now closes the public hearing for item 31. Any members wishing to speak? Seeing none, clerk, please open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Item 31 is approved. Next item, please.
Item number 22, called special by Councilmember Galanter.
Ms. Galanter.
Thank you. I actually am going to wind up asking that this be continued one day. The reason that I called it special is that this item would give the Police Commission the authority to authorize construction on weekends when there's an emergency. And sometimes there are emergencies and there are safety problems if a sewer pipe bursts, or has happened once in my district, or there may be something that happens as the result of a fire or some other problem. And what I wanted to do was amend the ordinance, but since it's an ordinance and it has to be amended, that we need a day to do that. I wanted to amend the ordinance to require that the Police Commission notify the council office or offices that would be affected, and when there are certified neighborhood councils, notify them as well, that the Police Commission will be considering this authorization, and then also that they notify the same entities what happened, so that if anybody wasn't able to be there or express an opinion, they will at least find out. And when you get the call on Monday morning about the construction that was going on Sunday, you will have been notified so that you'll be able to answer the question, why was that happening? So I've talked to the city attorney, and it's my understanding that the best way to deal with this is to put it over until tomorrow, and then if the council is agreeable, we can add that into the ordinance.
Thank you, Ms. Galanter. Colleagues request to continue this matter for one day. Anybody else wishing to speak? Seeing none, then without objection, we shall continue this item for one day. Next item, please.
Item number 32, request of the member of the public who wishes to speak.
Item number 32 is now before us, colleagues. We have a couple of cards on this item. We'll deem the public hearing open. The council calls forward Ms. Sandra Obando, to be followed by Rosa Roman.
Okay. Buenos días.
Good morning.
Mi nombre es Sandra Obando.
My name is Sandra Obano.
Vengo representando a la comunidad de San Fernando Garden en una vivienda pública.
I'm representing the community of San Fernando Valley of public living.
Soy la presidenta y represento a los residentes de San Fernando Garden.
I'm the president. I represent the residents of San Fernando Valley.
Para nosotros en San Fernando Garden y en los conjuntos habitacionales es de suma importancia mantener la vigilancia.
For us in the San Fernando Valley at the residential, it's very important to maintain the vigilance.
Sabemos que ha subido la criminalidad en todos los conjuntos habitacionales el 21%.
¿Cómo es eso? I know that the
Sabemos que ha subido la criminalidad en los conjuntos habitacionales el 21%.
That the criminality has a rise of on the 21%.
A nosotros en San Fernando Garden, desde que nos quitaron eliminación de droga, un programa,
In San Fernando Valley, since they took away our elimination of drugs, it was a program.
ha aumentado la criminalidad.
The criminality has increased.
Estamos muy frustrados en San Fernando Garden por todo lo que está pasando ahorita.
We're very frustrated in San Fernando Valley because of everything that is happening right now.
Necesitamos que se enforce la ley de no trespassing
We need to enforce the law
y no nos quiten la vigilancia,
and don't take away the security
porque es demasiado lo que está pasando en San Fernando
because it's too much what is happening in San Fernando.
y la mayoría de las personas que llegan allí no viven en nuestros conjuntos habitacionales, no viven allí en San Fernando.
And the majority of people who get there, they don't even live in San Fernando.
Entonces necesitamos que se enforce esa ley porque estamos peleando desde 1998 nosotros.
We need to enforce that law because we've been fighting since 1998.
Tenemos firmas que hemos recolectado en el pasado
We have signatures that we recollected in the past,
y todavía hasta ahorita no tenemos una solución.
and up to now, we have no resolution.
Entonces es muy necesario que se siga vigilando en San Fernando Garden.
So it's very necessary that San Fernando Valley keeps being guarded.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The council calls forward Ms. Rosa Roman.
Buenos días, señoras y señores.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Apelo a todos ustedes
I appeal to all of you
que pongan un poco de
to
atención
put a little bit of attention
en las viviendas de la gente marginada,
on the living situations of marginated people.
porque como dijo la señora Obando, yo me uno a la petición de ella,
Because like Mrs. Obando said, I go with her what she's requesting,
para pedirles ayuda,
to ask you for help,
que nos pongan la vigilancia para atrás, la vigilancia policíaca que teníamos del Housing Authority.
to put the security back, the security that we had on Housing Authority.
Porque así como ustedes estuvieron mencionando sobre proteger a nuestros niños,
But the way that you were mentioning about protecting our children,
los nuestros en esas áreas están desprotegidos.
ours in those areas are unprotected.
Entonces, por favor,
So then please
traten de ayudarnos.
try to help us.
Necesitamos la policía, necesitamos que nos cierren los gates,
We need the police, we need the gates to be closed,
enforzar los signs de no trespassing, enforzar
to enforce
los señales de no trespassing,
the no trespassing signs.
porque mucha gente que va a nuestras áreas no vive dentro de nuestras áreas, van a hacer sus negocios.
Because many people who come into our areas don't live in our areas, they come in to do their businesses.
Tenemos mucho problema con ese tipo de gente
We have a lot of problems with those kind of people
porque en nuestro proyecto de San Fernando Gardens
because in our project of San Fernando Gardens,
usted encuentra desde papeles de migración
You
hasta la última droga que puede existir dentro de nuestro planeta.
you find from immigration papers to even the last drug that you can find in this planet.
Gracias de antemano por lo que nos puedan ayudar. Les agradezco mucho y ojalá que en sus conciencias lo tomen en cuenta.
I thank you beforehand. I am very grateful and I hope that you take it within your conscience to take care of this.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for your testimony, and we will attempt our very best to be responsive. Are there other persons wishing to be heard at this point? If not, members of the council, there are 3 people wishing to be heard. We begin with Mr. Zine, followed by Mr. Padilla, and then Mr. Garcetti, in that order, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, is there a representative from the Housing Department?
Staff is approaching Mr. Zine.
Pardon me?
Good morning, Mr. President and members of the council. My name is Ed Griffin. I'm the Director of Planning at the Housing Authority.
All right, Mr. Zine has questions he would wish
The
to
question
pose.
I have is the current strength, as I see in this agenda, 32 officers out of 71, which leaves you 39 short. What is the command structure within that organization at this time?
We look forward to having a chance. I'll try and correct as many of the figures as I can. The source of those numbers, the information is a little faulty. There were 76 in the budget year 2000. There are in the budget year 2001, 63. And our actual strength at the present time is 47 officers, not 31. So that's a 25% gap. And so what has occurred has been that we've tried to transition. We offer, as you know, Councilman Zine, our supplemental services to LAPD at the developments within our ability to fund that. What we've done is transition from more of a sort of a couple of cars rolling around the 470 square miles that we have to cover with that contingent. And we've gone to more of a community-based approach. And so we're trying to cover all of our major developments. We're trying to cover the four most heavily impacted crime developments with larger teams. And then we're moving deployments of the other officers accordingly in the developments such as San Fernando, where you just heard, which has had a steady decline of crime over the last 5 to 6 years. There is a little spike now in Part 1 and Part 2. And so at the present time, that's the number of officers, and then there are a number of issues there with respect to, discipline that we're 4 down because of some terminations. And so, it comes down to deployment resources. That's just a sketchy. We're going to provide the written report that's requested in the motion, and I'll try and give you as much information as I can right now.
In that report, if you could include that deployment, the concerns in the budgetary.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, the chair recognizes Mr. Padilla.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, I'm the author of the motion, and I think, as we heard from the members of the public who came to testify, what moved me to want to raise the issue and introduce the motion. We're experiencing a spike in crime, yet again, specifically in this case, in the public housing projects that we have in the city of Los Angeles. I believe the data we read in the newspaper was an increase in 21%. So when we hear from our constituents, residents of these housing projects are our constituents, about their concerns, about their fears, we have a duty to look into it. As I began to look into it, a couple of things that I've discovered, and I look forward to the full report in committee by the department so we can clarify some of the questions, but more importantly, put plans in place to improve the situations. Some of the things that we discovered were that the Housing Authority Police, as a reminder for members of the public who may not know this, we have a separate Housing Authority Police which is different than the Los Angeles Police Department. And they're charged with providing public safety within the Housing Authority developments.
Right.
That agency is experiencing some of the same challenges that our police department is facing when it comes to recruitment, when it comes to retention, when it comes to morale, when it comes to the resources and equipment that they need to do their job.
Right.
We're talking about sheer numbers.
Right.
We're also talking about interagency collaboration because we have these housing projects in different parts of the city, some much closer in proximity to one another than, for example, the San Fernando Gardens out in the San Fernando Valley, which is at minimum, 20 miles from the next, or from the nearest housing authority development.
Yes.
So if we have a specific agency that's charged with providing coverage and patrol in a certain area, and for whatever reason, they need backup.
Yeah.
You're talking about 20 miles for a unit to travel from another location.
Right.
Or we can talk about the collaboration that can and should exist between the Housing Authority Police and LAPD. But again, I believe today that the communication and the relationship isn't there to provide it in a satisfactory manner. My opinion, we'll hash it out in committee. And other concerns. The motion calls for dual reports. One is how do we increase the strength, the size, the numbers of the police force charged with providing public safety in the housing authority developments? And then second, how can we as a city work closer together across agencies, across departments to ensure the safety of the residents? Because the bottom line is that the residents of the housing authority developments are residents of the city of Los Angeles, and those families deserve the same level of service and public safety as any other family in the city.
If I could just respond very quickly, Mr. Councilman, Mr. Padilla, that basically a couple of the things that you mentioned, the collaboration between us and LAPD and the city has been good. Our roles have been pretty well defined over the years, and I'm glad that you clarified their supplemental services. One of the comments that Mrs. Obando made is about that some of the drug elimination people have moved away. There was a federal program, Public Housing Drug Elimination Program. As we speak, Congress has zeroed that out. So as we sit in our current budget, there are no dollars to provide for that. That'll mean 13 more officers out of the existing contingent. We were never funded in our base year, which we'll include in the report, for anything other than 18 security officers. We've now grown to a force of those 47. There's also dispatch. So the total complement of people there is approximately 80 to 85. I forgot the facts on the numbers on the total numbers. But none of those folks were, so resources are an issue. And so we really look forward to presenting that. But in terms of collaboration, cooperation, and identification of resources, we certainly look forward to that discussion.
The chair recognizes Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no speech to give. I just have a friendly amendment to delete 2 letters for procedural accuracy, to refer this to the Housing and Community Development instead of Redevelopment Committee, I think, because Councilmember Wax. I want to make sure that goes to the right place. Thanks.
All right. That will then be done as a correction. The chair now recognizes Ms. Hahn.
Thank you. I, too, am very concerned about the rise in crime all over the city, but particularly in the areas where we have public housing projects. And as you all are aware, I have a third of all the city's public housing projects within my district. And it is a great concern to me, and something I've also heard regularly from the residents of those projects about their concern for the rise in crime, their fear, the children living in these projects who really feel victims most of the time. What I didn't read in this motion was, when you come back with the report, and Councilman Padilla mentioned 2 areas, will there be, along with your report, I'm assuming, a crime report? I mean, before I believe we're able to really analyze your deployment and how well you get along with other law enforcement agencies, is the actual crime report associated with the public housing projects. So I would like to see that as part of the report. And, you know, I would also like to see, for the crimes that occurred in these public housing projects, who was the first agency to respond? Was it Housing Authority? Was it LAPD? I mean, I think that would be an interesting fact. I've heard rumors about who responds and who doesn't respond, so I'd like to have that included in the report.
We'll certainly try and address that. I mean, in terms of the records of who's first, again, I'll just reiterate, we are supplemental services. We've always been supplemental to the Los Angeles Police Department, and that has been our role historically. And so to try and, we need to start with that as a beginning assumption, but we definitely need to communicate that case better.
Right, I just have heard that that's not always necessarily the
okay.
case.
All right.
That sometimes the LAPD does not respond
to
calls for help within our housing projects. In fact, I've heard that they've refused sometimes to go in there, so I'd like to know that.
Thank you.
All right. The chair recognizes Mr. Zine for the second time. Sir?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple follow-up questions. I know the school police is on a scale back of their resources in law enforcement, and I know that the LAPD promised they were going to do something with the parks and recs because of the lack of rangers in the parks. and you mentioned a supplemental. In reality, they depend on your agency to provide public safety to those housing projects within the city of LA, and that's the real world, because they don't have enough resources to handle the basic calls. So that's the real problem that we have to deal with. The other question I have is the association from the housing police. I'd like to have them included in that report, because if you have a lack of personnel, they may be able to offer some suggestions, and I understand there is an association of the Housing Authority Police.
There is, sir.
To have them consulted and to have their input also.
Absolutely, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Clerk, there is no other member wishing to be heard at this point. Would you indicate what's before us then?
Item number 32 with the correction to the committee name.
All right. Please open the roll. Could close the roll and tabulate the vote.
14 eyes.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Item number 10, called special by Councilmember Padilla.
The chair recognizes Mr. Padilla.
Thank you. Is there staff available on this item? Have questions, not specifically on the contract before us, but on a related item since it relates to the Sun Valley Generating Station. When we were approving the facilities plan last year, or I forget exactly how long ago it was, certain commitments were made. There was an amending motion that offered at that time to provide for improvements at the facility and in the vicinity of the generating station in Sun Valley. As we're approving this contract to provide the upgrades and the retrofit work of the plant itself, I want to get an update as to where we were with the other improvements that were committed at that time.
Sure. Henry Martinez, Assistant General Manager for Power, Department of Water and Power. Indeed, we are working with your staff to develop the improvements that we have agreed upon. We have committed $1 million roughly to, in essence, address the issues that are a concern for the community. And the staff itself, we've been in contact with your office to, in essence, identify where that money is going to go. We had initially looked at greening some of the right-of-ways coming out of the plant. That cost became economically high, and it used up a lot of that money. So we went back and tried to find other methods to improve the facilities.
Do we have a timeline by when we can see some of the improvements?
I would say that we will not begin construction of this particular contract or this particular project until probably the end of the year. Our intent is within the next 2 months to sit down, or next month actually sit down with your staff, go to the community, identify what issues we have out there, and where we can start actually putting the money on the ground.
Okay, another question is, with this contract, with these improvements, my understanding, and I want confirmation here if this is true or not, that the capacity of the station itself will increase, will be generating more energy, more output, but at the same time reducing significantly the pollutants or the emissions from the facility? Do you have any specific numbers?
Yes, indeed. The new plan, when it comes online, will increase the operating capacity of the existing plant by about 220 megawatts. And in essence, it will run longer. The exchange that we have is that the plant will be cleaner. And so, in essence, the emissions that we will be emitting from there will be equal to or less than what we have now, while creating more power. The Air Quality Management District is the lead agency at this point to formulate all the permits and also the ERR in regards to the impact of the plant to the community, and indeed they're going through the process currently.
Now, when you say it's going to be cleaner, is it going to be cleaner per hour that it's running? Is it going to be cleaner overall?
The number of pounds of emissions that will be coming out of there will be, in essence, will be equal to or slightly less than what we have now. The way we operate the plant, the way we operate the plant right now, typically in the summertime, is when the plant runs. Those are the last units that we dispatch for our system, and so consequently, they have very little run time. The way that and indeed, because there's no controls in those units right now, they do emit quite a bit of pounds of NOx and other emittents. The new units are becoming online, the new combined cycle will run longer. However, the emissions will be equal to or less than what we have now.
And this my final question, Mr. Chair. Again, when we approved the facilities plan several months ago, we had asked for quarterly reports, if not more frequent, with measurements of emissions or pollutants for those time periods. When can I expect the next report?
We should have a report ready for you in the next month. We have just a quick update on the integrated resource plans you referred to. We have, in essence, in that plan, agreed to include SCRs on most of our units in the basin. Those projects we just completed within the last 2 months, and they are in operation now. So the emissions themselves for the summer have substantially decreased from a year ago. We're also, a part of the plan included installing 300 megawatts of simple cycle turbines. Those are under construction right now. The first unit will come online within the next week or so, and the following 5 will come online within the next month. This is the next major contract or major piece of the IRP, which is the development of the repower at Valley, and therefore this is what we're here for this morning. But within a month, we'll have a report for the council, updating them on all the IRP status. Okay. And one of the things, we are currently updating the IRP. One of the things we also committed a year ago was on a yearly basis to look at the plan and update it accordingly. So within the next month, we'll have also the IRP ready to be issued.
Okay, looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Padilla. There's no other member wishing to be heard at this point. Therefore, Mr. Clerk, if you would just simply remind the members of what's before us, we can proceed.
Commerce, Energy, and Natural Resources Committee report and ordinance.
All right, we have the requisite number of people to dispose of this. Please open the roll. I'll close the roll. Now tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Thank you. Is there a need to send this forthwith?
Forthwith, please.
The request of the chair is to send this forthwith. That will be the order. Next item, please.
Mr. President, item number 34 is a closed session that's being held on the desk. Do you wish to take public comment at this time?
Indeed. Ms. Hahn.
Could we have item 18 sent forthwith?
At the request of the member from the
Thank you.
15th District, so ordered. We have several persons wishing to be heard by public comment. The Reverend Carlos Boy, Mr. Michael H. Hill, Rich Reed, and Larry Green. Please come forward. Is Reverend Boy here? It's your opportunity to be heard by way of public comment.
Members of the council, Mr. President, I'm here today to talk about the Los Angeles Police Department. Currently, I have a complaint against the Los Angeles Police Department. Our complaint was actually forwarded by the Justice System Integrity Division on the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office. They forwarded this complaint of misconduct involving Los Angeles police officers assigned to the Wilshire Division in 1983. The District Attorney's Office is interested in events surrounding my 1983 arrest. I feel that the Los Angeles Police Department should be held accountable for their actions. Police officers are not above the rule of law. There's no man in this country above the rule of law. Though they may put on a badge and though they may wear a gun, they have to respect people's constitutional right. The Constitution is one of the most precious gifts that God has given man. It's called the gift of freedom, and I respect the Constitution. And I think just because a person is a police officer, they should show respect for people's right. Also, what I have in my possession, this is a tape that my mother marked this morning. It says, "Conversation with Internal Affairs." I have been having conversations with Internal Affairs, although they don't know it. I've been tape recording these conversations. The reason why is for my own protection, because of past experience with the Los Angeles Police Department. They try to say things are all in your mind. They play games. This 1983 arrest was stemming from my 1981 conviction when Tom Bradley was in office. I was a kid. I used to play on the phone. I've been clean for 20 years. I'm a minister at Newfound Missionary Baptist Church. Okay. I know a lot of ministers in this community. I've been all over this country. In fact, I just got back from the Great Falls in Montana just last week. So I think the city council should continue to monitor the Los Angeles Police Department. Also, when I was 12 years old, I was on my way home from Pastor Junior High School. During that time, they had Operation Stay in School. If they saw a kid out of school before 3 o'clock, they would automatically pick them up, right, and take them to the police department.
If I could ask you to conclude, please. If I can ask you to wrap it up.
Okay. So what the police officer did at Wilshire Police Station, I got smart with this officer. He choked me out. So when my mother came home, when my mother picked me up from the police department, she noticed rings around my neck. Her name is Daisy Banks. She's the same one who marked this tape this morning as evidence because I had conversation with Internal Affairs yesterday. They were playing head games. This letter was forwarded by the district attorney's office. They're interested in the Los Angeles Police Department misconduct involving me. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Michael Sainthill to be followed by Mr. Rich Reed.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Michael H. Sainthill. I mean no disrespect to some of the members on this council who are Jewish, but it's called freedom of speech. I know you are aware of the history of the Jewish, the European Jews in Israel. And you look at the Palestinians who are the indigenous folk of that land, and you, in retrospect, in 1955, you had the Israeli Jew last act against the British occupiers to blow up the Jews, to blow up the King David Hotel, killing 500 British soldiers. These Palestinians are the indigenous folk of that land. I'm not picking on Jews. I don't hate Jews. I'm just saying you have white Europeans who adopted a religion belonging to the Ethiopians, and then they go to another man's land and they fought the indigenous folk and took the land over. I simply say, if you're there that long, now you should try to share the land, not indiscriminately practice genocide on indigenous folk. They're throwing stones. You have guns. It doesn't seem fair. It doesn't seem right. My heart cries out for these people. I think whole America should cry out and stop and speak up and say, stop the genocide against the Palestinians.
Thank you very much.
It doesn't look right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Rich Reed to be followed by...
I want to submit this letter also to support my...
Mr. Rich Reed to be followed by Mr. Larry Green.
My name is Rich Reed. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Several months ago, I met with Diane Watson for about an hour to work with her on some fundamental reforms in music and languages. She spent about an hour with me, played on my music keyboard, got into the details of some of the music papers and language papers, and for the first time now, there's a member of Congress who understands and supports some of the reforms that I'm working on. Several weeks ago, I met with Cecil Murray, pastor of the First AME Church of Los Angeles. He spent about an hour with me, played on my keyboard, got into some of the reforms, and said that the reforms are a revelation. I hope we can build on that. I've left packets of papers for all the council members, and I'll hope to meet with each of you and take you into the reforms at least as deeply as I did with Diane Watson and Cecil Murray. I think one of the recent council meetings, there were several hundred people in the room dealing with committee assignments. I'd like you to imagine several 100,000 students behind me, several 100 million students from around the world who would benefit from these reforms, who would add their voice to the reforms if they knew about them. But they don't know about them because they are kept ignorant. An actual result, you might appreciate, a 6-year-old girl Lesson 1 with language reforms. Read some words, pronouncing reasonably accurately with comprehension in English, Spanish, Italian, French, German, Russian, and Japanese. A 5-year-old music beginner, Lesson 1, played 9 songs and 4 classical themes on a music keyboard in about 20 minutes in her pre-kindergarten classroom. And
If I
yet,
could ask you to conclude, please.
Okay. And yet, LA Unified, for example, University of California, California State University, don't do anything with these reforms because they have a vested interest in not getting such results. Let me suggest that this material is appropriate for at least several of the committees where we might get into this in detail. Education, of course, arts, of course, info technology for dealing with the computerization of the reforms, and public safety. If kids learn and like the way their brains work, they'll be less likely to take drugs.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Larry Green.
I just want to point out, first of all, to all my fellow public comment people, 10 minutes is allocated to public comment. Is that correct, Mr. President? So we should all be courteous to fellow speakers, and I think you have probably extended the 10 minutes by a minute or two, and I'm going to be very brief. But by the same token, I think my comments are well taken. I really did not want to be here this morning to say what I'm going to say right now. I'm in the midst of a very heated race in the 4th District, and I'm not doing any electioneering right now. There are 2 very discrete problems in the 4th District. One you can't do anything about. That's the incredible amounts of money that some people are raising, and that's legal. 6 figures and on up. But what you can do something about, the City Council and those of you that are watching on TV, is the problem of signage, S-I-G-N-A-G-E. There is an ordinance, I don't quote the city charter, there's an ordinance on the books, no signs for political candidates should be on telephone poles, no signs on city property, and in fact there should be no signs on freeway overpasses, and there in fact should be no signs on empty lots without the consent of the owner. Well, it's a free-for-all now in the 4th District, and since we don't have anybody representing the 4th District, none of you really know about this or care about it. But I want something to done because I, as a candidate, can do nothing about people that are from Hancock Park and real estate developers and lawyers and doctors that are contributing to candidate X, Y, and Z. That's unfair enough. But when I've got to go by and see a sign of Ferris Wiebe and a sign of David Roberti and a sign of Mike Schaefer all over the place illegally, it's not fair to me, it's not fair to Tom LaBonge, it's not fair to Beth Garfield, it's not fair to all the others that are playing by the rules. And I want you to all do something, street maintenance. And if you don't do something, I don't fault anybody for ripping down those signs from trees, from payphones, from private property, because you're going to have some angry landlords around here. And if you, City Council, can't do anything about City Council people running for candidate for office, then who can do anything? And I'm not electioneering, Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
I'm talking as a resident of the 4th District. It's an eyesore. Thank you.
That concludes the public comment period for today's meeting. Ms. Hahn, did you wish to speak? Clear the queue. Mr. Clerk, next item.
Item number 34 is a closed session item.
This is a closed session item. In conformance with California Code, the council will adjourn into closed session. Guards, please clear the chambers.
Mr. President, do you wish to clear the desk at this time?
Yes, let's do that.
Motions for posting and referral.
Those motions are posted and referred.
Request from excuse from council attendance. Councilmember Pacheco, request to be excused on August 15th to leave at 11:30. This meets policy.
Mr. Pacheco is excused.
Councilmember Weiss, request to be excused on October 5th to leave at 11 a.m. This also meets policy.
Mr. Weiss is excused.
Councilmember Miskowski, request to be excused on November 14th for city business. This also meets policy.
Ms. Miskowski is excused.
Councilmember Pacheco, request to be excused on October 2nd to leave at 11 a.m. A motion is required.
Mr. Reyes moves without objection.
And Councilmember Hahn requests to be excused on Wednesday, August 15th to leave at 10:30 for city business. This meets policy.
Ms. Hahn is excused.
And the desk is clear, except for item number 34.
Desk is clear. Now we will adjourn into closed session. Guards, please clear the chambers. Welcome back to open session. Mr. Clerk, what's before us?
Item number 34, request from the city attorney to authorize approval of settlement of case for $3,750,000.
Let's open the roll on that item. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
11 eyes.
That item is approved. Any announcements? Forthwith on
Wait a
that.
minute, didn't I vote no?
Mr. Garcetti.
No.
I believe Chairman Holden will back me up on this, but the Intergovernmental Relations Committee will be meeting, in, if possible, 12:45 instead of 1 o'clock.
Record me voting no on the last item. It would not change the outcome of the decision, so therefore...
Clerk will reflect that change. It does not change the outcome of the vote. Any other announcements? Please rise for adjourning motions. Colleagues, I'm going to take the privilege to do the first today, request that the council adjourn in memory of Mr. Harold Marvin Schatz, and I believe Ms. Perry wants to be a co-presenter on this. All members. Mr. Schatz was born on August 16th, 1916 in Chicago and passed away last Thursday, August 9th. He moved to Los Angeles just before World War II, was a veteran of World War II and a survivor of Pearl Harbor. He's a long-term resident of Sherman Oaks and leaves behind his wife of more than 50 years, Charlotte Schatz, and 2 children, Carol and Jeff Schatz. Mr. Pacheco.
Mr. President, colleagues, ask that we adjourn in memory of Ron R. Crabtree. He is a resident of Northeast since 1978, co-owner and office manager of local community escrow company since 1983. He was a board member and past president of the Highland Park Chamber of Commerce, board member and past president of the Uptown Gay and Lesbian Alliance, also a very active board member of the Eagle Rock Chamber of Commerce from 1995 to 2001. He was a regular contributor and volunteer for several community events and community services in the area, a member of the Glassell Park Improvement Association, participated in other organizations such as Blend, the annual Northeast Los Angeles Christmas Parade, was selected honorary mayor of Highland Park in 1999. He's survived by his life partner, Max Vasquez, his mother, Lillian Crabtree, his brothers, Mickey, Reggie, and his sister, Karen. He was considered an essential part of the growth, improvement, and the organization of the Northeast community. He will surely be missed by everyone. A good supporter of mine from way back in 1997 when I first started getting involved here in local politics. So ask that we adjourn his memory.
Mr. Garcetti wishes a second. Mr. Holden.
I just want to add to the chairman motion that you introduced regarding Mr. Schatz. Carol, his daughter, we know all of us very well. I understand he was ill for some time, but it doesn't make it any easier when this happens in one's family and friends. I just want you to know that I, for one, will call Carol and let her know that our hearts and prayers are with her and her mother and the entire family, and that we will offer our support where it's needed, because these are the times that they need that kind of support.
Any others? Mr. Reyes.
I just wanted to join my colleagues, Nick Pacheco and Eric, with Mr. Crabtree.
Mr. Ridley Thomas.
Mr. President, members of the council, I'd ask that you join me and Ms. Perry, who will second this, upon the occasion of the passing of George J. Webb, a longtime resident of our area, that is the Los Angeles area, and he is the father of my former chief of staff, Carolyn Webb de Macias, survived by his wife and the 3 daughters and a host of grandchildren, as well as other relatives and friends. He will be sorely missed.
Mr. Weiss.
Mr. President, I ask that we adjourn today in memory of Mr. Bruce Hockman, who was a well-known leader in the Jewish community for many years, also a longtime friend of my family. He actually was my father's roommate in the Air Force 50 years ago. Mr. Hockman is known throughout Los Angeles for so many reasons. He was really one of our leading tax attorneys in town. He founded a very successful tax law firm in Beverly Hills that bore his name. And he was also well known because he was the president of the Jewish Federation and a longtime leader, really a sort of a founding force of the modern ADL, Anti-Defamation League movement. He'll be missed by many in the community, including his wife, Harriet, his daughters, Nancy and Jennifer, and his sons, Nathan and David, who've been friends of mine since childhood.
All members on that. Any others? Mr. Zine.
I'd like to adjourn in memory of California Highway Patrol Officer Doug Hart, 35 years old, 5-year veteran of the California Highway Patrol. Died of skin cancer. Been battling the disease for the past year. He was first assigned to Central area, and his last assignment was in my district, the West Valley area.
Thank you. Colleagues also wish that we adjourn in memory of Ora Skipper, who was born in Tucson, Arizona in 1933, but spent much of her life here in Los Angeles for more than 35 years, worked for the Los Angeles Unified School District, 15 of those years as a bilingual teacher. She was an active member of the Beta Pi Sigma sorority, the Zeta chapter, since 1968, and was serving as president at the time of her death. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll. Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.